Sorry about that.
Okay, I will call to order our December regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. Our treasurer office has been hit by whatever bug is going around, so they will be tuning in for notes and minutes to the recording. Do we have any changes to the agenda, any additions?
Yeah, I'd like to add the third ambulance conversation, just a continuation from last month. We can either do it under my report or old business, either way.
Okay, anything else? We have an executive session for police personnel.
I had a reminder of myself that the state of the village is sometime in the next few months. Maybe we want to look at calendars as that is really.
And while we're on that topic, I'm assuming, though it's dangerous, we won't need a meeting on the 22nd.
What about true?
I don't have anything pending.
So we'll notice the cancellation of our meeting on the 22nd. Stay. Okay, any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, then we have our consent agenda, which includes our monthly abstract as well as meeting minutes from November 10th, our November 10th meeting. General fund abstract this month a little bit higher than normal due to New York State retirement annual bill. A general fund abstract totaling $559,694.30. We have a water fund abstract totaling $14,480.52. The sewer fund abstract totaling $13,320.46. Someone like to move the consensus agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And you need to pull any items consent agenda. If not, then all in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, that takes us to our first public comment period. Any members of the public? Okay. Kay, did you have anything you wanted to mention in our first public comment period? We have another one at the end of the meeting.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Very good. We'll move right along to reports from representatives. Ann Corman just texted me and let me know she's in there. A meeting running late, so she'll try to join us at some point. If she does, we'll back to her. Which takes us to reports from this board. State of the village. Historically, we tried to be somewhere in the first weekend in February, yeah. Seems to be.
I thought we had set this already. Am I just misremembering?
We did, all right, 6?
Yeah. I may have just totally invented that.
It felt like we just had.
So the first Saturday is the 7th. The next Saturday is Valentine's Day and then school break. So we're really looking at Saturday the 7th or scoot all the way forward to really the 28th. I feel like I grew up the 7th. Anybody out of town that they know of February 7th? That's
It's early though.
sorry.
It's just early. But maybe this is our cabin fever, you know, we should make it an affair. Yeah, seventh works for me.
I suppose we, I don't know, there's, going the 28th. Felt just late, but I don't know for any good reason.
Do we have a sense of pressing? Talk about this, you know, that we decided today, but. Project updates is always fun.
Yeah, it's like
On the
sidewalk,
sidewalk.
big one. Trent, talking about changing of snow plowing routes due to that. So we gotta tack on, but let's go into detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we tentatively plan on February 2nd? Feels like it's right around the corner, but. It's 2 months, right?
We were forced to have it in March last year, weren't we?
Yeah.
First week in March. Yeah.
So we push it out a while, yeah. Sort of out, which is why I guess it just had.
Yeah, let's shoot for February 7th, something comes up, if we can always.
Okay.
Just a brief comment on under my report, another successful Winterfest was had. This past weekend, so thank you to everyone who makes that happen. Seemed like. More people to watch Hillby every year, which fascinates me to no end. But it's joking with someone that I prefer. Me personally, I tend to prefer Summerfest. But that's Porch Fest, so we get one in June and one in December. It works great. And then on a more serious note, I suppose, I need or would need a motion to approve my signing 2026-2027 fire and EMS agreements with the towns of Covert, Hector, and Ulysses. When they come back, I believe all the towns adopted their fire budgets after the public hearings last month. So those contracts will be coming back to us in January. It could be anytime in January. So I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign those contracts with the 3 contracting towns once they come back to us.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on those? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Marcia, speaking of fire.
Yep. So far, we have 417 calls for the year. The month of November, we had 36 calls. Out of district was 3, Covert was 3, Hector was 2, Ulysses was 15, and Village was 11. And just a reminder to everybody, the Santa's mailbox is up at the fire station, and if you want to put letters to Santa and your requests in there, you can do that until December 20th. Please make sure that the name, age, and address is on the letter, so Santa knows where to find you that day. And that's it.
Okay. EMS Youth Street Tree Advisory Committee.
So I don't have much to report on from the Youth Commission. We are moving along. This is a fairly quiet time. We did have a presentation from the civics group in the high school on the town's park acquisition and development plans, which was quite interesting. The high school students had done a pretty lengthy review, you know, surveys of their classmates and all of this, that it I think contributed to maybe a more official, I'm not sure exactly how to define it, but a report from the Design Connect team, but that had been heavily weighed in on by the high school group, and they gave a report directly to us that was fairly exciting, I think, just honestly, just the opportunity, right? That the town has this park and that they're moving forward with it. But hope is on everyone's radar, but it was exciting to see high schoolers and freshmen through junior, I think, kind of engaging with that process. And some of the group had started working on rec possibilities and park programming and design 3 years ago, when the initial referendum happened, and they've sort of followed it through. So it was a pretty engaged group, and it was quite fun. I don't usually report on the particulars of what we do, but that one felt really, really exciting, and just it was great to see how engaged they were, right? The ability to sort of follow a project through was pretty inspiring, I think, for them. And then for EMS, I can start with just the normal call report, but do we have a preference as far as the third ambulance discussion goes, if that happens now or under old business? All right, great. So I'll start with just the normal call report. So 14 in the town of Covert, 1 in Enfield, 4 in the town of Hector, 7 in the village of Enfield, or Interlaken, excuse me, 12 in the city of Ithaca, 4 in the town of Ithaca, 4 in Mecklenburg, 4 in Newfield, 1 in the town of Ovid, 36 in the village, and 23 in Ulysses.
You go back. City.
12.
Town,
4.
Newfield,
4.
who else is out there? It's not in our district, that list, one other.
I mean, those are all, everyone else is in our district.
Enfield?
Enfield was Enfield. Oh, Enfield wasn't. Yeah, you're right. 1.
How many in the village?
36. This is an abnormally high month for the village.
And town of Ulysses?
23. Total of 111 calls, which is, I don't know. Joel, correct me if I'm wrong here, but usually it's about 100 calls a month. So we're a little above average. The village, I would say, is usually neck and neck with the town. So I would say, account for 10 call bump.
Right, no, I was just more interested in the 4 non-district call municipalities.
Yeah. Oh, well, and the 12 out of the city is
Effectively
remarkable. Yes. Yes. And the 12 calls from the city is remarkable. Yes. But with that, I'm going to leave most of this conversation to Joel, who I've asked to be here to sort of continue our conversation from last month. But just to recap, we have now a third ambulance that we had struggled to repair for many months, and then ended up replacing. When Joel went to sell that ambulance, the resale value was substantially lower than expected. So it is now just sitting. Joel is driving it maybe once a week just to sort of keep it up to date, keep things from seizing up. But at this point, in terms of our operations, it's not being used. And so we face sort of a simple question, which is, do we fit that ambulance with the equipment necessary to make it functional for our EMS department operations as an ambulance, or do we not? And that would, I think, generally be a fairly simple question that I would just bring to you, right? I would bring sort of, these are the invoices, this is what we expect it would cost. But because I think that conversation touches on the broader implications as far as a third ambulance into the future, I wanted to bring it to this board to get your feedback and sort of, maybe start a broader conversation. So there are really those 2 separate conversations. There's the initial conversation about, do we spend, Joel, am I remembering correctly that it's like 20 to 25 grand, somewhere in that realm?
More.
And actually, Joel, could you grab the mics just for anyone listening at home? Sorry, I should have said that at the outset. You'll have to turn it on.
Yeah, I think the total, depending on the decisions, are around 12,000.
Oh, okay. All right. So I was overestimating.
Yep.
So there's that question. In the immediate future, do we do that? And then the secondary question, because if we do that, it kind of sets us up for when we have our next ambulance, which is due to be delivered in May. Is that right?
Probably between March and.
Oh, okay, a little early. Oh,
Yep.
see, I'm being pessimistic. I like this. All right, so early spring. So this would set us up potentially for when that ambulance arrives, maintaining a 3-ambulance fleet. And so our question now is fairly simple, but it does kind of, touch on how we move forward. So I wanted to bring that to the board. I wanted to bring Joel here particularly to talk about sort of how often we might use it, what the need is, what our call patterns are in terms of second, potentially third calls, all of those things. But he does not have anything prepared. Him and I, we haven't talked about any specific things. I really just wanted to have him here as a resource for all of you. So any questions we could kind of talk through as a board. So I'll kind of leave it there. Any questions? I think we would love to talk over, just to think it through. Yeah.
Just some things that may affect whether you guys decide to move forward with 3 ambulance instead of just put together and just rough data on second calls, what we're handling, and the frequency of that and the time frame that we're getting them. So just to go over them really quick, the first one is just it was just the busiest months, or I'm sorry, not busiest months, but how many calls per month we're getting this year. This is all this year. Second page just shows the days of the week. What call we're landing under there, or under those 2 graphs, it has our responses for our fly car, which is 382 responses this year of our fly car. So those are either second calls or they're calls for assistance where they needed extra people power or another provider. And then the 24 is how many times we have had mutual aid come to us from the data that I've collected. Next one is just the hours.
Joel, can I just interject? Just point of context here. When I started 2013 era, our total call volume for the year was about 600. So that 1859 that you're seeing, that 382 is substantial. Sorry, carry on.
And then the last relevant chart just shows hours of the day. The big reason I wanted to just share these is what we're currently using 2 ambulances at a given time for. There's the unpredictable times when we get a second call in the middle of the night and then people that are off duty might respond, but then there's times during the office hours that we're staffing our second ambulance. And what I'm doing my best to do that is during those peak days, which are Thursday and Monday are the 2 highest, I believe. And then the peak hours, which is generally from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So you can see most of our second calls fall in those categories.
Joel, did you find the number about the times we received mutual aid?
Yes, it's.
Is that in here?
Graphs. It's the 20, it's under the 1859 responses.
Oh, the 24.
The
oh,
24.
Yeah. So this, I asked Joel to highlight that 24 number. Those are the calls. So right now with 2 ambulances and a flag car, we're missing, and that is for the year to date.
Yes, but there's a lot in there, as I mentioned to you before, that I just couldn't capture because we haven't been capturing.
Right.
So the hard part is if we document, let's say the fly car goes, that's lost data. So I don't know the outcome of those.
Oh, I see. So we don't know if that was a transport.
Yeah, so it's definitely a very low number. It's hard right now, but moving forward, I will definitively have that.
I see what you mean. Was that clear, the distinction there? So the mutual aid received on that second page, the number 24, Those are calls where we couldn't respond. So say Bangs or South Seneca responded to our district. But so that's a clear number. Of the second call responses, what we don't know is how many times that would have resulted in a transport. So in those cases, we may have had mutual aid called as well, right? We could have provided the initial medical aid and then had a transport from there. So the 24 number does not fully capture our secondary responses, but will in future. But it does give you a sense, I think, between those two numbers of what our first two ambulances are not covering.
I like that pointing because I think that helps. What I was trying to understand here is we're gonna get lots of calls. We get a lot of calls, some of them are out of district. At some point, a little bit of this is a judgment call on our part of how much do we want to staff up to be able to handle the calls and come away. Recognizing that some of them are gonna be out of district, and so we're in this weird spot where we're kind of staffing to support other groups that are paying us, right? This whole struggle that we constantly talk about. I like the idea of framing this more in, are we able to cover our own district all the time regularly? And I think that's the primary focus of everything we do. And I feel confident saying I would love to see us have zero mutual aid received. Like, I think that would be kind of the goal. Maybe that's a little too high, but like somewhere in that, close to that is like, we are saying we handle our stuff. And occasionally we have capacity to go elsewhere, but like, that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is we can handle all of this side. Now, obviously, mutual aid is there for a reason. It's not always gonna happen, but I don't know if 24 feels too high, too low. It does make me feel like we're not wildly out of shape with our current setup, but I think the conversation here is, would we be able to do a slightly better job servicing those with a full ambulance versus just the fly car? Is that kind of the understanding that we're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
So to be clear, year to date, we've had 116 second calls.
Okay.
So if we only had one ambulance that was on 24/7, we would turn over 116 calls.
Right.
We are currently answering quite a few of those. The big question is whether we want to add that third ambulance to our fleet. What that does to me operationally, often we have an ambulance out of service, whether that's in the shop for routine repairs, whatever the scenario is. So anytime right now we have an ambulance out of service for routine repairs, we are not answering second calls. They're guaranteed to get turned over. So adding that third ambulance to the fleet, if you guys feel like it's necessary, guarantees that availability of the second ambulance.
Can you help me understand what the fly car plays in then? Because I would have expected that to be part of that.
Yeah, the fly car is simply a support vehicle. So it does not relieve the EMS system at all. It's there mainly for two different scenarios. One is if a patient's critically ill and the crew needs more help, we can get help there. If it is a second call and we don't have an ambulance available, at least we can get a paramedic on scene starting care while a mutual aid ambulance comes to us. And then there's the other piece of just four-wheel drive.
So this data that we're looking at is reflecting more. I don't know, actually, maybe the question is like, how often through the past year to date have we had two ambulances in service that we've been running? You know, a sense of that has been most of the year, some of the year, I know we have.
So there's many times, the times I can guarantee it are Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday during regular office hours. And conveniently, those happen to be our peak times for second calls.
I think I was actually really just talking about physically or because I know we've had some mechanical issues and whatnot, like have we had two ambulances? Assuming you have the staffing, I understand that's separate.
I gotcha.
Have we had the two kind of in-service ambulances for most of the year?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, but I would say each ambulance is out of service on average 4 days a month. That's just a rough average.
So it feels like, I mean, if we run back a couple of years, it feels like before we started using the flex personnel capacity that we have in a couple of days, we had two ambulances primarily for redundancy. We had one in case of an emergency with something made out. We've now use that kind of float capacity to now start staffing this regularly, and what we're looking at is. We're actually taking quite a bit of second calls. It sounds like if we were to. You know, say we're not gonna do that, that would be quite a detriment, quite a step back. I think we've kind of tiptoed our way, like, I guess my point is we kind of already tiptoed our way into the problem, and now we're just saying. Do we wanna feel the pain if a ambulance is broken, or do we wanna just accept that we're really already here and have that third ambulance for redundancy purpose?
I think that's exactly right. One thing just to clarify though, Joel, is that the fly car goes with an ambulance. Somewhat frequently, it looks like if we've only had 115 or so second calls and we have the fly car going out 382 times, it's going out with an ambulance sometime, right? So that's a distinction that I was missing
Why
here.
would that be?
Why does the fly car go?
Go with the ambulance. If the
I mean, we
ambulance
have-
is already going and.
So that happens, I
If
would
it's a
say,
critically ill patient, so they just, I mean, remember minimums or the staffing of an ambulance is one EMT, one paramedic.
Right,
So if it's a cardiac arrest and you're in the hospital, you get a team of 12, right? In the field, you get 2 people. So I will tend to go to help them. So at least there's a third person there on scene. So that's one use.
so does it depend on the call then?
Very much so.
Okay, I would assume, okay.
to be clear though, there's frequently times where like the fire department will show up, just we need manpower. Like every ambulance scene that I've been to, which generally is just incidental. I don't go to ambulance scenes as a matter of practice because I would just be in the way. But there's 5 or 6 company members who show up, right, just for, you know, hands.
Yeah,
Essentially,
Like,
right? So
that's when my dad fell, obviously the ambulance came, but fire also came to help lift, you
Right.
know? not-
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
and that's very common. I think that the flight car is used more sparingly, but I don't think there's ever like, oh, there's too many people. You know, I don't think that really happens.
So this is my concern. My concern is this. So we keep the third ambulance and like you said, just to outfit it is $12,000. Are we setting ourselves up for forever having 3 ambulances and then having to fully get 3 brand new, you know, down the road, 3 ambulances, staffing 3 ambulances? This is my concern is that we are going to grow without the support, especially financially, that we're gonna need for this department. I mean, it's already getting crazy.
Yeah, well, I think that's Ben's point is we've already sort of put our toes in that water. And at what point do we say, hey, we're in it? We're going all the way, or do we pull back? I think,
Like, the way we tiptoed into this is we had an extra ambulance as a just in case if something broke. Then we're like, well, hey, it's just sitting there, might as well do something, right? I wonder, is there a scenario we can see near term? We have 3 ambulances, we go, hey, we got an ambulance, let's sit there. I don't, my suspicion is no, because we don't have a reason to be having people around to be able to staff that, but I guess that's my question, like. To your point, I don't want this to open yet another door, I want this to like. Continue this, we've opened this door like 3/4 of the way, and we're like, yeah, we should just open it 25% more. I don't want it to say, oh, now we're opening another door, isn't that great, right?
That's how I feel. I don't
Exactly.
want it to snowball into this. Now we have 3 fully staffed ambulances and if we need to have mutual aid and somebody needs to come to us, it's, once in a while, it just seems like we are shielding the county here with no help.
I mean, there are some simple benchmarks here. Sorry, did you want to?
Just a unrelated question. How many total second calls did you say, Joel?
15, 16?
116.
You have a way to data mine of those second calls. How many of those were we on a first call? That was mutual aid.
Yes.
So we have 139 mutual aid calls that we took. So I'd be curious.
So how many second calls occurred while we were on mutual aid for someone else? Yes, I can.
In other words,
capture
if
that.
we weren't rendering mutual aid, we had no second calls.
Well, I like that question.
Good question.
And the second part, you don't have to get that right now, Joel, but the second question is, I know there's an industry statistic. A percentage or amount of mutual aid. kind of on average that an agency will receive, and I thought it was in this 6 to 8% range, but I don't know if that's by making that up or not.
I'm not aware. I can certainly look. I know there's as far as when to start staffing a second ambulance, I know those recommendations. I don't know the mutual aid one stuff.
I'm just concerned because we're already getting, you know, when we go to these annual meetings with our towns and everything, the towns are still already saying, there's gonna get to a point where this is just
Right.
not sustainable. We can't pay the fire bill that you're charging us for the service and.
Well, in my mind, I see them as slightly different. Just because, right, the extra $12,000, I think we're all.
We're all good with,
Is it
we're all good with that, but I just don't want it to bring.
Exactly, right, so like, and the question, the narrow question in front of us, I think I'm fine with going ahead with it, I think exactly, I think we either need to. Convince ourselves that that doesn't open yet another door, or be very clear with everyone here that like. If there's a door that looks interesting to open over there, do not open that door, right? Like whatever that is, I think that's the way to think about it, yeah, I don't know.
Cause I don't have no problem with, we already have this ambulance, it's gonna cost a. You know, very small amount to outfit that, to have a backup, but I don't
And we're
want,
already using it constantly, and we've already gotten ourselves in a spot where we didn't have it. We're actually kind of in a little bit of a lurch, unless, I think Gordon's question is really the question. Is are we in a lurch because of actual mutual aid at the end of the day, so that would be important.
yeah,
I think it is worth pointing out that traditionally, and I don't know what weight I want that word to carry, but traditionally our goal was to offer as much mutual aid as we received, right? Like there's no, you know, to your point, there's no question of what is the percentage, right? It's just a basic fairness question. Are we right? And for many, many years, we received far more than we gave. Now we're kind of on the other side of that. But I think to me, there is a world where we want to maintain that balance. We do want to think carefully about the system as a whole, our obligations to the system. Right. I think it would be a very difficult brass tacks conversation to say this is the mutual aid call we don't go on, or this is the second call we don't go on, or this is the third call we don't go on. Those, like, once we get into those particulars. So I think from my perspective, I would like guidance, I think generally in terms of, hey, how many calls can we miss a year? What's a good target, that kind of thing. So I think Roden's point is actually maybe kind of combines those two questions, right? Like, are we providing an adequate amount of mutual aid or a reasonable amount, coupled with, are we missing calls because of it?
So I've been having this conversation round and round for about 3 years, so. To bring everyone into the loop of kind of how the conversation has evolved countywide. Is from our perspective. We should want to render as much mutual aid as we receive. The difference is at a time in the distant past, when we were a high user of mutual aid. We were receiving that mutual aid from a for-profit entity.
see,
Now that we, and in the case of Dryden Ambulance as well, are a net giver of mutual aid. We are giving it to directly, not the for-profit entity, but the municipalities to whom that for-profit entity cannot at times cover. And those municipalities have $0 in the game.
Right.
So there's an inequity in terms of how taxpayer dollars are being spent. On the one hand, when we receive mutual aid, there's no taxpayer dollar being spent to render that mutual aid. When we are the town of Dryden rendering mutual aid, every nickel is taxpayer dollar. And so that's the that's the inequity. I agree that we don't want to be in a position of saying we no longer render mutual aid, or we only render mutual aid on certain types of calls because something bad is going to happen at some point, and it will be our fault for not sending an ambulance. But
however, I do agree with Ben's point that our priority should be to our district. That should be our priority. That's what we are paying for. That is what our district is paying.
And certainly what we're thinking about it systemically, like a.
Well, I remember
If
when
a
I,
particular call comes in, we're not gonna put it regularly necessarily, but like as we're thinking about how we build this whole system, that should be our focus.
and I mean, my concern early on, this is probably just a really crass thing to say, but if I had a baby that was choking in Trumansburg, but my Trumansburg ambulance can't come because it's in mutual aid in Ithaca, I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna be upset. I am paying for Trumansburg ambulance to be here. So I guess there's an expectation of, and I think certainly so, an expectation of our constituents who are paying for those tax dollars to expect that our priority will be our district that we serve, not. So that's where I think Gordon's question of that data would be really important. Too.
I think it is important, I would say, I guess, to kind of bring it down to maybe a simpler question, I would just say, I feel comfortable with us running our EMS. One ambulance 24/7 and a second ambulance during working hours when we have the staffing, when it's already kind of have staffing here for other reasons, and then we can kind of opportunistically go after. I think it's a very smart, cost-effective way that Joel, you've set up the department. I'm really quite proud of that, and I think staffing it or like outfitting it with the ambulances such that we can do that, even if one of them's in the shop, I think sounds reasonable. I would be very, I don't know, it would be a much larger conversation for us to move beyond that model. So if we kind of,
I agree.
I would say I'd be for approving this and saying, and we're holding the line here. And we continue to have these conversations with the county, and we can have these conversations about not responding if we only have one ambulance or some of these other things that have come up that I think make a lot of sense when we're talking about a lot of small EMS departments that don't have extra capacity to just kind of continue to give you for mutual aid, and then we're out of luck if something worse happens, at all.
Joel, do you have the capacity, meaning does the department have the capacity to do any interfacility transports from the third entrance? Or would we need a contract in order to do that? We do those on an as available basis.
We can do them as available. We certainly have the capacity. I think the real question is whether we want to when our second ambulance is staffed. I think that's a little bit of a better question, not so much with our third ambulance, but do we, when that second ambulance is staffed, when I'm in the office, do we want to make ourselves available? That would certainly help offset cost. And the amount we'd be utilized versus available, to me, makes sense. We'd still be available quite a bit, and it would, again, help with the cost.
If I recall right, the question was demand though, right? Wasn't there a question of doing this for CMC and then they contracted with Bangs and we were sort of cut out of that loop? Is there still sort of a kind of nascent demand for that work?
I cut us out of the loop intentionally. So they have a list of who they call when they have a transport, and Bangs is their first call. If they're unavailable, they turn it down and it goes down that list. I removed us because we were only staffing one ambulance and I just could never get somebody to do a transport on their day off, which is very reasonable. That certainly changes having a second ambulance staffed, and especially if we have that third ambulance still available in our district should another call arise. I think it's certainly appropriate to put us back on that list to making us available. We can turn them down as often as we want, but
Do you think you have capacity and availability to run interfacility transports, ambulance number 2, and then emergency call-in staff for number 3 if we have an incident or a busy second call day? I'm just trying to think of a way.
Yeah.
So, the problem, you know this. The problem with hospital-based ambulances, they end up always doing interfacility transports. So if we have a second staff and we start doing interfacility transports and the money's good, then that basically means we're not doing second calls.
This is that extra door.
Yeah.
Is there a way to have our cake and eat it too on that? We're able to pick up many second calls and do some, since we have a third in, and do some. In other words, I want the interfacility transport piece to be the extra that isn't done at the detriment of the second call pickup.
For sure. Right now, I think it'd be, excuse me, I think it'd be quite hit or miss or project it based on staffing. But that's the only caveat to it is I think we just need to hire a few more providers, especially part-time. I certainly don't think we're far from it though. So I think, just a guess, I think probably 40 to 50% of the week, I could actually accomplish that right now.
Because one of the things that I've wrestled with is I don't know that door's open. I think the
Don't
door.
look at the door.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about it.
I think the door's a black hole and we're headed for it, whether we like it or not, but if there's a way that we can offset costs. Meaningful. And I think that's something we should.
So this is something we thought through a little bit. I think the thing that stopped us at the time was, first of all, CMC going with bangs. But the big thing was Marcia's sort of, thought experiment, which is, my family member is in critical need. Trumansburg EMS can't come because they're on mutual aid call. That hurts in one way, but Trumansburg EMS can't come because they're on an interfacility transfer. Hurts in an entirely different way.
Exactly why it took us off the list.
Right.
Just there's no scenario I could justify doing it.
Right. But right, Roden's point is good, that if there's a way to do a third ambulance without impacting the operational capacity of the first two, right, then that's something we could continue to.
So what kind of staffing do you need to be on the transport list? Just to take somebody from CMC to Beach Tree or CMC to Lakeside, it's not Lakeside, but. Because my understanding is one of the reasons why we end up in this mutual aid situation is because they do all those transports. They're not doing emergency calls and we're picking up the slack, right?
Used to be.
It's not that much anymore.
That is an occasional piece. There's
Okay.
many variables there. And that is one of them though, yes. So if Bang's just picking on them for a moment, if they have 4 ambulances on during the day and 2 of them are on non-emergency transports, that means there's only 2 available for their district calls. So just that, it's just an example. So that certainly does occur and it does take ambulances away from the EMS system.
No, not to throw anyone under the bus, but how often do they have for? Last year.
Now we've gone to brass tacks. So
the
but in
issue
terms
is-
of staffing, though, Marcia's question is good. EMTs, paramedics for an interfacility transfer.
That's the nice thing is with an interfacility, we receive a call asking if we want it. And I have time to see if I can get staff put together. So if it's a BLS transport to beach, for example, I'm only going to use EMTs. I'm not going to call on paramedics for that.
Right.
But if it's a ALS transport to upstate, that's an emergency, I can use paramedics to staff it and, make more money as well. So.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about, maybe we could do that third ambulance and get back on that list like Gordon said and make some money.
If we have those staff.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the critical.
I mean, the questions that actually, like, I want to do it smart, maybe.
Yeah.
Even calling in 2 EMTs, what's the calling rate and time window? I don't know if there's like a million hours and how.
And what's the contract number? Like, what's the?
Right, like, are we spending 1,000 to make 500? I don't, I hope we have to.
Joel did the numbers at one point. Maybe we should bring that conversation back up and just think about it. But before we wander too far off this trail, let's think. So it seems like the consensus is we're okay with the minimal outfitting of the third ambulance. Can you look what that number is exactly? The estimate for that equipment.
Yes, so. Depending on the options, so I put in a few different options.
What's your recommendation?
So should they still be available? Because I think a month or 2 has transpired. The stretcher was, let's just say $9,000. And the mount system is $4,400. So
Okay, so let's.
$3,500. I'm sorry. $13,500.
So let's say that, I mean, that was several months ago. So I would move that we approve up to 14,000 from equipment reserve, Joel,
Yes.
to outfit a third ambulance.
Subject.
Thank you. Yeah, subject to permissive referendum.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second. Begrudgingly.
Shudder.
I
Well, you
do
don't-
shudder.
To be clear, this is a vote. Like, this is meant to be an open conversation. This is, right?
Yeah.
This is not we can go left or right here, and I think both choices are valid. I mean, I will say in terms of full disclosure, I think Roden and I differ somewhat. Roden is much more in favor, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, of equipping the third ambulance and accepting the inevitability of that choice. I am a little bit more reluctant. I think Joel tends to side with Roden, just so you kind of know where everyone stands. I don't think that this decision necessarily sets us inevitably on that road, right? To Ben's point, we have not opened the door insofar as maybe we already have opened the door, right? But we're not necessarily opening it. Or
What's the
it's hard.
alternative? You just get rid of it for how much of the money?
I turn it into my camper van. Joel and I fight over who gets to turn it into their camper van.
Can I share one?
I think it's fair to say that I'm in favor of outfitting the third ambulance, because I don't want usable third ambulance sitting in the park.
Yes. Yep.
Whether we keep 3 going forward is a different question.
Right.
We have. 3. We just can't use them.
Right.
Whether we keep 3 is a different question. I see a lot of inevitability and I don't like any of it, but I feel like,
Yeah.
see, just the concern that I have. The issue with believing that it's not inevitable.
Mm.
The problem with believing that it's not inevitable means that at some point you're developing policy whereby you decline.
Yes. That is absolutely
And
correct.
I don't know how you do that without eventually having that thing happen. Don't want it.
Yep.
Sooner or later, you're the agency that doesn't respond.
I want to just go back in time and put that sentence in bold, because that is exactly correct, to be clear. Right? We're looking at finance versus people, and making that balance in any context
Well, there's no.
is immensely difficult.
But you know what? There's a price on that, because at some point, people are gonna throw up their arms and go, we can't afford this.
That is
Just like
exactly
every
right.
family in America right now is going, we can't afford this healthcare. We can't afford it.
At some point.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere says that. My question is, how do we avoid, I mean, I don't know how that plays out. That's the only.
Right, exactly.
That's.
Albany, are you listening?
That's the part that scares me is at some point, and we're not talking about a lack of staff, we don't have staff. We can't take a call,
Right.
but if you have staffing and capacity, you make a decision to not take certain calls because of costs. That's.
But I don't think that's, the question isn't, picking up calls and deciding I'm gonna take this call, I'm gonna take that call, it's. The question is, the next step here is, do we staff another 24/7? Like that,
Right, but what I'm.
No. So
What-
that is the
What
question.
I'm suggesting is that the conversation that's being had. At the county and the state level is, well, if you have the ambulance. And you have the capacity to hire staff. Then if you don't. You're making a choice that results in your agency not taking calls.
yes. 100%.
It
You
is.
could argue that we're already doing that today, we could be staffing a second 24/7.
Yeah.
We have made the choice not to, you could argue that we'd be doing that for years, because we had 2 ambulances, it's like, I don't really buy that long train of thought.
There's gotta be a way to triage those calls, though, right? Or does it,
Not,
or by law, no, it doesn't matter.
not the agency.
It is already being done of county policy, even though they're doing it and paying for the product. The county will not stand behind their EMD coding, which is their triaging.
I mean, cause there's a big difference whether somebody's choking, having a stroke, having a heart attack, or fell and needs to be, I mean,
So I think on the superficially there is, it is in practice.
maybe we're going to.
Yeah. Yeah. In any case, for the moment, I think we've opened this conversational door wide open. So I'm going to keep nagging everyone about how we feel about the ethical obligations that we face as a municipality moving forward. But for now,
Can I put one more thing on the record? If you decide to keep 3 ambulances, that means the 3rd ambulance is being stored outside. We do not have the garage room indoors for our ambulance. Just letting you guys know that.
but to be clear, it's actually being stored outside either way.
Currently, yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Brandon, you have any thoughts?
You just think.
Sticking with it.
Feel like this conversation has gone way, so
Yeah,
it's gone beyond the 14.
it's in that, yeah.
We're talking about and, yeah, I feel like if we're gonna vote for this 14,000, that it is already open at the door and it's gonna eventually end up where we have to make a decision on how we are gonna have to make money on it, not if. So. That's what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm hearing from it.
Mhm.
I think making money on it. So the idea, the interfacility transports, that whole question is one that we entertained 2-3 years ago.
2 years ago.
Um,
I know we've had it a
And-
couple times.
and put aside because the question for us was, could we face, right, someone whose family member was hurt? We couldn't be there because we had someone else. Even though I think from a policy perspective, they're completely separate issues, right? They do not intersect. But from a perception, the perception of someone receiving care or not receiving call, it's impossible to separate them. So I think that ultimately is why we put that conversation down. I think Ben is right that there is a door that we may or may not be opening right now. I don't think the interfacility transfer door is the one. The question is really more about staffing, right? So we're tiptoeing our way into staffing the second ambulance. That question I think is bigger than interfacility transfers. That's more of a opt-in, opt out at any time.
Staffing still have to find the fund.
So those funds will be taxpayer subsidized funds. They will come from us, our taxpayer dollars. They will come from Covert, Protector, and Ulysses. I don't think they will come from interfacility transfers. That's the only distinction I'm making.
And the whole thing about this is like, people cost way more than the equipment, so.
Yes.
like,
Well-
Really, this whole question about ambulances is like a sideshow to the, like, the problem is when we decide, maybe it's not 24/7, is it, 8, 9 to 9, or is it, whatever, 9 to 5, or whatever we do, we say 5 days a week, business hours, like that would be the next logical step, like every time we take another step. It's another step, but we should have this conversation then.
At each step.
At each step, and
Yes.
make that each step very.
Yes.
And you bring up a very good point for people that just are looking at this optically is when we're talking about a ambulance, we're really talking about the people to run it and how much it costs for,
Right.
for staffing, because that's the big deal.
Right, and the reality is we already done that part enough, couple days a week for a couple of, working hours for the day. That we are doing that with the second ambulance, like we already made that decision, so this is just like catching up the equipment to the decision we already made. If we make the next decision, that's what we really have to have a conversation, like, are we actually gonna staff this 5 days a week?
So am I understanding that this third ambulance is just gonna be there in case we need it, or you're really talking about staffing this third ambulance?
That's my opinion, just for.
It's just-
Staffing will not change.
If our other ambulance is broken, we're using it.
Staffing will not change.
Okay.
This decision is purely equipment for a third ambulance, just in case, and truly because it's just sitting there.
Right.
The only reason I'm bringing this to this board and the only reason I've opened this can of worms is because I think at each step along this process, we need to have this conversation and we need to seriously grapple with the implications. This decision on its own is not that, but it is a step along that path.
It's my worry.
And it inevitably and truly is that, right? How big a step and how inevitable and all of those things are kind of the questions that we have to grapple with.
Other comments or questions? If not, then we have a motion and a second to approve spending up to $14,000 from the EMS equipment reserve, subject to this referendum to outfit ambulance number 3. Last chance.
If I had charged, but over.
That's why we approved that extra couple $100.
A great part of it's grassroots.
Mhm.
If there are no other comments or questions, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thanks for all.
So you would think that would be the end of my report. The one thing I want to quickly add that I've said before, but I'm going to say again while Joel is here, because the reality is that Joel is the person who will make this happen. This data that you have in front of you is very flexible. Joel can pull things like what day of the week is, the highest call volume day, what time of day, what type of call. Right? I think Joanna does the police reports, right, are broken down into type of call. Things like that are all well within the capacity that Joel can do almost incidentally with very little effort, right? Like pulling these reports is not difficult. So I've said before, I just wanted to say again, if any of you would like to see more granular data about type of call, that kind of thing, we can do that. Just let me know, let Joel know. With that said, I will actually end my report.
Okay.
That was long enough. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Joel.
Hey.
Let's go to DPW Water Sewer CPZR Farmers Market.
All right, I will actually keep it relatively brief. On the CPCR side, just an update, we're kind of continuing to work through a draft of the commercial zoning. I think at this point, all the parts are pretty locked in. We need to start like combining them into a document, actually give them a spot. And there's just a whole bunch of suggested edits and comments that we are sending with this board to take a look at. And we're continuing to look through and tighten up some of the definitions as well, so. I'm hoping that in the next couple of months, we'll have a draft that we can talk about here at this board and share with other planning and zoning boards and start getting. Feedback and progressing forward. Part of that is the broader commercial zoning changes that we've been talking about, working on for a year or more now. Probably closer to 2. And the other part of it is incorporating some of the conversation on the street, so it's going to be a little long, but more to come on that. Our next meeting is a week from today.
Thank you.
And so I'll just kind of continue moving on that. Nothing much to report on DPW water and sewer. The farmers market, I did have a conversation about roles and responsibilities, but they just had their big meeting. I think over the weekend, and gave me some kind of small edits, but something that is more run by Chief or by Dusty, as far as like they're appreciative of the crossing guard. They do have some feedback on hours and what they've seen, so I'll pass that on to you. But they wanted to include some of this in like what the village's responsibilities are, which a little bit hand wavy, but maybe if we just all feel like we're good enough and I can put something not quite specific in there, I don't mind being clear that that's our intention at least. None of this is particularly binding, it's more just to like get us all on the same page. And we don't have to like sign things or have anything, it's not like a binding kind of notice anyway. We could move that direction if we felt like it, but I don't think it's necessary at this point. So, anyhow, that's a long way of saying, I'm gonna work on it a little bit more and we can kind of do a final. Look through, not that I think again, this needs any action, particularly in our part, but just have a final review of that. Probably our next meeting. That's actually a lot.
Okay. Police, Joanna.
Yes.
So be short, so. The report from the chief, so we've had 310 calls this month. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
No calls were outside the village for November. Criminal investigations, 1 domestic, true trespassing, 1 harassment, 1 motor vehicle crash investigation. And then non-criminal investigations, 124 were property checks. 3 properties were found to be unsecure from our property checks. 104 initiated stops, and of those 68 were ticketed. 12 parking complaints, 20 informational inquiries, background checks for pistols. Not a lot happened in November. Just a reminder that there is no parking during the winter time on Main Street. Not quite sure if that's where those 12 parking complaints came from, but it's a little higher than it usually is, so I'm guessing that people were probably parking on Main Street when they shouldn't be. That's really all that I can continue talking about people speeding on Housing. I have been working with the chief on getting the data off of those, so the flashing signs that we have on Housing, they do record the number of vehicles that go through there and the speed of, or the higher speed of each vehicle. So I have been getting data from chief to see, and to compare when people are speeding the most,
During school hours. I
It
can tell you
really
that
is.
right now.
It is 7:45 and 8:15 is when most people are speeding. About 60% of people driving unhealthy are speeding. And between 5 PM and 6 PM. I think the funny thing though is when you look at the days of the week. Saturdays are actually when people speed the most. I have no idea where people are trying to get to on Saturdays, that's why I don't care.
From one end of the street road to the other. I can guarantee it. It's insane. As quickly as possible, I swear to God.
But that is what I am seeing in the data that the police chief has given you so far for September, October. I also asked him to give me data for November. So yeah, so I did talk to the chief about that. He said that he would most likely have a patrol car there during those times.
Does anybody remember that website that Tony gave us? Remember, way back, it was something that DOT had, it was like satellite and it was by street. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Maybe if you had it in an email, I could pull it back up, but I don't remember off the top of my head. He had
What is this?
some. He had some data source from like DOT. I don't know if it would have all of these specific, I feel like it maybe.
I think it did, because I think you sent me an email and went, oh, poor Halsey Street.
Oh, could have been.
So I'm just wondering what that, I might be able to just get a hold of him and ask him.
Yeah, you certainly could. I don't remember. Well, yeah, where the source data was from, that was pulling from, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was DOT. He has some sort of voodoo magic in the cloud somewhere that they.
Is it like the number of vehicles that go down the road? Is that what you're-
I think so.
So.
And
from-
yours is more specific.
Yeah,
for
from the
speed.
data that chief gave me, like. On September 20th, it was almost 500 cars just going down that road. October 27th, it was over that. So there are a lot of cars that come down also.
Yeah, I think that might have just been the data, was the number of cars. It doesn't give specific. I think that's what it was.
So we're trying to do the best we can, with the data that we have and. There are far fewer people that speed on that road, and not to say that. You know, everybody speeds on that road, but those are the peak times, what I mentioned earlier, when people do speed. But there are law-abiding citizens. that will Go 25.
Yes, there are.
Miles per hour. I also tried to narrow it down to, there's always that little bit of above or below. So really trying to narrow it down to who's going over 30 is really, I think a better way of looking at the data.
Mhm.
So that's where our numbers are right now for speeding. We are paying attention. We don't catch everybody. We're not going to catch everybody. We're not going to catch the one person that speeds on housing at 2 a.m.
Oh, that's almost nightly. He wakes me up. I need some stop sticks.
But it really is important to see how many to look at it as in where is the most risk? The more cars there are, where the speeds are there, rather than the one person.
Right.
Of course, that is. You just can't be everywhere all the time.
Especially at 2:30 in the morning.
We will be, keep on pushing on Dustin to get signs up, not that I expect them to by themselves do particularly much of anything, but some more signage on the street. And then we'll get back to the striking experiment in the spring, but we gave her a shot and then didn't work out, so we gotta reassess how we're gonna finish that.
Is it the machine that's not working?
It was a combination of machine and just, I mean, they've never done that sort of work. It's always been just short lines for stop lines or in parking lots. So it's just a whole kind of process and technique that they were learning. So they've been talking with some more folks and have some better ideas of how to approach it in spring. So they're gonna give it a shot again, and we'll see if it doesn't work out at that point. We might have a conversation about different equipment. But I think they learned a lot from that first try, and so they're gonna give it a shot. Spring, see what happens.
That's all I had.
Okay. Our clerk treasurers. Full convalescing, is it okay with everyone if we do our budget scheduling via doodle poll or?
Yes.
Try to get those started late. January, maybe that last week of January. Okay. Before we go to old business. Let's go back to our reports from representative. Did not realize Annie, you'd be joining us in person, but since you are, I believe this will be your last time meeting with us as our county legislator. So before you tell us whatever you wanted to tell us, let me just say thank you for your years of service and always being willing and able and available anytime we needed anything from this end. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll say it was been a
pleasure and an honor, you know, to work with you folks, to work with the constituents and to represent people, you know, it's. I know it's especially now government can seem a little nebulous and scary and out of touch, so I know. I just try and do what you guys are doing, just trying to make myself accessible to people and, you know, and to make sure I hear people. So when I'm done, do I have to drop the mic? I guess that's up to me. Done. Pretend that's not there. So thank you very much and for trusting me too. I've always felt a really good level of trust between, you know, our municipalities that, you know, people give each other the benefit of the doubt. You know, give me a call and say, hey, what's up? You know, so I've never, ever gotten something from here or the town of Ulysses, you know, that says, hey, why are you, it's asking me a question and asking for an explanation. So I really do appreciate that respect. And so yes, at the end of the year, I'll be done with my 8 years and I'll then figure out what I want to do when I grow up. Let's see, so a couple updates. I'll start with Marcia brought something up at the last, I think it was our last meeting regarding the bus stop downtown. And I believe what you had said, there was some people in there that were kind of staying there overnight. And so I checked in with the city about that. Apparently it was a heated bus stop.
Oh, that's fine.
So that's why people were in that particular bus stop. So it took the city quite a bit. Apparently there's a process. You can't just go and just scoop everybody up and kick them out. There was a process of ticketing and different things. So they did that. After that got taken care of, we do have now at the county our Code Blue shelter open. So that's for when the temperature at night with wind chill drops below 32. So that's at the old Found site on Cherry Street, 227 Cherry Street. So I went down there a couple times when we were finishing renovating that building. I say renovating, it was, you know, making it habitable. It's not beautiful inside, but it's habitable and it's maybe a 1 or 2 year fix for that issue till we build a purpose-built building on that property. So we've had about 25 folks staying over there on average per night since it's been open. I think it was open like the Monday before Thanksgiving, I think it was open. And No More Tears came for Thanksgiving and gave everybody a full Thanksgiving meal. And we also made sure that the county, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a nighttime shelter. So we, you know, wanted to make sure that we added that to our budget, that we would staff it during the day. So I went during the day to check on people and people can hang out or play games or, you know, they have people there that can help give them services or navigate different systems with the county and the city. So it seems to be working pretty good so far. And it's co-ed, they have people split up and by genders, but also they have a flex portion too, you know, depending on what gender you identify, or if you come in as a family, or if you come in with a dog. So they have some flex space in between those. Let's see. We did pass a local law at our last legislature meeting, and that was to add our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer into our charter, the county charter. So what that does is that makes that position a part of the county, like so that if the position's empty, because what's happened in the past is then, well, if it's empty, well, do we really want to have that position or not? So that makes that person, you know, part of the county government or that position. You could, someone could, or the county could add a local law later and take the person out or the position out. Doesn't mean it's stuck there forever. Every position is like that. That's in the charter. I have some sales tax from October. Would you like those? Okay, for the county, we were up 5.11%. And from last October, year to date, we were up 4.14%. The municipalities were up 3.5% for October from last year, and year to date, up 5.19%. We did have a little bit of lull the month before, and we're not sure what that's from. Albany doesn't really give us explanations because it happened to other counties. So sometimes they do reconciliation because sometimes it's estimates and then sometimes it's a reconciliation. And we're not always sure exactly when they're going to do that, or they don't always tell us. But overall, these, the year-to-date numbers are more important. Let's see, we're processing notices to 120, to owners of 123 parcels within the county who have delinquent taxes. That number always goes way, way down because apparently when we send them notices that we're looking at foreclosing on your property, that often prompts people to pay their taxes. And we also can negotiate with them at this point too for sometimes a payment option. So sometimes that's helpful to help people get caught up. And that's all I wanted to ask if that's okay to, Johanna said about the no parking on Main Street in winter. Are we not able to?
Overnight, right?
Oh, overnight.
Overnight, so.
Okay.
For the plowing.
So I'll make a note of that. Don't park overnight and don't speed on Halsey
Street.
Street anymore. Okay. All right. And that's all I had.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. We can leave it at.
Okay.
And I'm gonna head out, so
Thank you.
guys
Thank
very
you.
much. I've been
Thank you.
Anson.
Yeah.
Nice problem. Anson.
Thank you, Anson.
Village.
All right, item number 7 is a business. I'm not entirely sure if that there was an adjustment made to the roof bid. Jessica sent around for us all to look at. I don't think we need to award it tonight. We will need to decide whether we want to rebid it. Or not. Based on the fact that we will receive the one.
Yeah, I'm happy to ask Dusty and Clint about it again. I think we had a bit of a chat, but then we kind of put it on pause because Jessica had said early on that the number was gonna change, and so that makes it.
I think she emailed it around, so if you wanna.
I got the copy. I can bring it up, but I think I'll be with Dusty on Wednesday, so.
Yeah, see what they think about it, and if they don't have any issues with it, or they think it's a good number. And they want no part of the roof, then. You can look to award it.
Yeah, the little bit that we did talk about, for whatever it's worth, is. Plaintiff was looking at the whole roof and feeling like. Doing the whole thing in one bang is more than the DPW could take on. But as we talked about a little bit more, if we wanted to do like a 3-year program of like a chunk every year sort of a thing. You started to think about, is that possible? Would that make sense? Did they handle it a little bit at a time, so on and so forth. So I also wanted to get another sense from him on that front, at least see where his head was at. Yeah, I think he wanted to. Think about it a little more, so I can report back on what the conversation is. It's certainly a big number. I don't know that it's. An unreasonable number for the. Work and for the. Prevailing wage and so forth. So I think the only question is. If DPW has any sort of concerns on it in some way or another, or if they want to take a different approach, they would recommend. So. I'll bring it up, I'll say it, report back.
Okay.
Okay.
But I haven't said the number, I didn't put the meeting, but, I mean, I have no idea. And we're costs, so.
It was.
A big number.
Mind boggling.
It is a big number. I mean, the weird thing though is it's a very large roof. So like, I was surprised by the number. I would say dramatically surprised by the number. Well, with one bid, it's hard. I mean, I think that's why we
Well,
might
that's the
go
problem.
back out to bid,
Right,
right?
the other option is to go, right, to go out
Rebid
and rebid it and spend more time, more effort trying to pull everybody in and see if we can get another quote. That is another option we could obviously take on.
I think some of the problem is. Obviously, the available contractors are gonna bid it up high because they have the other ones are. Yeah, we're gonna bid it, but we might not be able to get to it till, you know. The problem is finding them when we need them, I think, too.
I don't think there's any terrible urgency.
Right,
though,
that's what
right?
I'm
I mean, we'd be
thinking.
fine.
Maybe if we rebid it and.
That would be my inclination, but I would defer to them.
I think. Trying to remember, I think what does to her, what Clinton was saying is that like the part that was actively leaking, they did address. And the rest of it is in a great position, but it's not actively leaking, so there's not a lot of time, but there is some.
But there's,
It's time to do it,
It is.
but it's not like, oh man, that we gotta run.
We gave you the, that immediate urgency, but it's, yeah, it's time to do it. I know we've been talking about it, eventually it could be done since I've been on board, so it's definitely here. Yeah. And part of it to be possibly, you know, like the part that Clint said he was not gonna do is the rubber roofing for the low pitch roofs, and like that already is 20,000 of this. Just looking at the breakout, so like.
is there a possibility to bid it out in parts? You know what I'm saying? Like if there are things we can't do, but somebody might be able to?
Well, that was kind of the
Can we-
conversation with Clint is, you know, if Clint wanted to take on doing a chunk at a time with DPW and the parts that they own, you know, I don't have the skills in-house to do, they could get out smaller parts. The only concern is, does that make it even less and less appealing for us when somebody come in and do
Yeah,
a
probably.
small section of one thing, but. I don't know, maybe we still get a bid anyhow, I don't know, you know, it's hard to kind of.
But it might be something that a reliable, smaller contractor might be able to handle versus like, you know.
True, I mean, it all starts, you know, it's kind of.
I-
an issue, because they already the bid for municipal contract is a pain in the butt, and so like,
Right.
it's hard to get a lot of people, I mean, we had this conversation before, it's like, a lot of people just say, oh, I don't have time. Maybe if it gets small enough and it's under like our ceiling for contract bids. Maybe it gets a little more flexible at that point, so that is like. Maybe one way of thinking about it is if we take a little more in-house and the parts that are left over are small enough, we don't have to go through a full bid process, now it's a little more flexible. There's. I feel like we're just adding more and more options to weigh and like we'll.
You mean we both at the same time?
Can we do half of one?
For redo this one plus ask for a smaller, like what you're saying.
I mean, you can certainly structure the bid as like. More individualized sections and ask people to kind of break it out that way, I mean, it's already broken out in large part probably. Like that. As long as people are willing to. Entertain that. Knowing that maybe we say we believe this part, they could also just say no. Right,
Yeah.
we could say that we would like you to do part A, not B and C and D, and then could go, well. Oh, thank you.
To be clear, we can restructure the bidding process. Like this is not set in stone. This is
Yeah,
like
no.
we could make this so much easier. And
Let's.
for 60 grand, I think.
And I'm happy to chat more about it.
Yeah.
I have much more experience on that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll rediscuss in
Revisit.
January. We'll make a decision for the spring. Do we have any other items of old business? Do we have any items of new business? All right, that takes us to our second public comment period. Anyone attending, any member of the public attending would like to say something?
Great.
Oh, see, this is why we left the mic on.
That's right, it's that.
So good evening. My name is Mark Beauchart. I currently live at 2 Wig Street, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the proposal for rezoning at 16L. I've moved back here about 11 years ago or so. And ever since I've been back here, that property has been always doing weddings, things of that sort. Looking at the petition that was submitted back in May, that was part of the proposed ideas of what Jess was proposing to do in that facility. A number of these are already being done. They have been being done for the last 10 years or so. So I'm not sure why we need to do the zoning. What I'm very concerned about is to allow a restaurant or some sort of retail business open to the public type of thing. I don't believe that's going to happen with the current owners, but to somewhere down the line. I originally grew up here in Shermansburg, and I was up about four houses further up the street at 36 Elm Street. And when we purchased that house, it was directly across the road from what was the American Legion, and that was already commercially zoned. During that time, I mean, I was here 4 or 5 years through high school and then kind of came back after college. The parking was horrendous. Back then, there wasn't a lot of recycling and such, so there was all kinds of garbage every day in the front yard. But that was something that when we were bringing up issues and complaints and bringing, asking the police to come, it more or less said, hey, listen, you bought the house, you knew it was commercially zoned. This is a iconic community service. This is something that, a large part of this population did enjoy. So go talk to them and work it out between us. So there was really no support on how to get parking organized and access through the streets. It got so bad that it wasn't even parking along the street. It was parking in the front yard or on the side of our driveway. And so it overstepped the bounds. And I'd hate to see us going back to that. And that's my big concern is that hospitality, the hotel idea, the event center, I'm okay with. I've lived with it for the last 10 years. About 2 times a summer is when there's more cars than can fit into the property. And so they park along the street, which really isn't any much different to me than the holiday service masses and things like that, so I can roll with that part of it. It's the concern about going one more step and having it open to the public, restaurants or a store of any sort. And so I just wanted to kind of bring this up as I've lived through that dream once already. And I did make sure that it was zoned residential before I bought 2 Wig Street. And now it's interesting that it's going the other way for me. So anyway, I just wanted to voice my opinion and my input. I do have other neighbors that was likely speak up. I know Kay was here 2 months ago, and my other neighbor Ryan was as well. And I just would really appreciate that we make sure that we're going to keep. I don't want open to the public type of thing, a restaurant or that sort of thing. I lived through that already once.
And have you found a huge inconvenience from, like you said, what's going on already, they're already doing, there's not much of a deviation from what they're saying. Have you found a huge inconvenience?
Not huge inconvenience. No, I can't say it was huge inconvenience up to this point.
Are you concerned that once they get the variance to become bigger, that instead of it being a couple of times a month, they have an event that maybe every weekend, maybe on a Friday night and then on a Saturday and then on a Sunday, they'll have an event? Is that a?
Yeah. I mean, I would worry about that, but right now I think just the proposal would be,
Right.
I'm following along with what the petition was. But yeah, obviously if it's an every night event, then yeah, I would have a problem with it, even with the ordinance of the noise and such. I've got kids in school, wife goes to work. 11 o'clock at night, it's pretty late. So I think that's the quiet hours, right? 7 AM to, or 11 PM to 7 AM is the quiet hours.
So you don't have any objection as long as it stays pretty much how it is now, like inclusive, people stay overnight, they might have a small function.
Right.
Or maybe even a little bigger function than they can handle now, but you'd be cool with that.
They've had tents in the front. I honestly haven't counted people. But I haven't had a problem with it.
Yeah, I noticed
Up to
that
now.
over the summer tents and
Right.
too.
And this year hasn't been so bad. Actually, Jess came over and gave me a heads up that, hey, I'm gonna have this event. And I said, yeah, I can see the tent. Let me get out, cut my grass before this event starts. So I do try to work with her.
Yeah,
You know, it's just, if it's every night and it's open to the public,
Yeah.
I don't want to live through that again. So,
Understand.
any other questions? Thank you.
No.
So just to give you a preview of where I think the committee is at, I'm looking to put a draft together for this group and then continue to get in from hearing from people like, you know, neighbors as well as the federal community. Is that, as things stand right now, we just have a commercial district and a residential district. So the initial conversation in front of the board was, well, we could just move the full commercial district up a couple lots. And that could open up to kind of anything you see on Main Street, which is a lot. So the current thinking the committee is going to propose back to this board is to create a third zone that's in between residential and commercial. We're calling it like neighborhood mixed use. And it's, the idea is to have that available on all of Main Street outside of the downtown core. And it is residential with a very small amount of commercial available. So I think the limits we're looking at is a restaurant, but for 300 square feet. So very small, a little bit cut pocket restaurant, retail with like less than 1,000 square feet. Those sorts of smaller things that you might think of on Main Street where it's, you know, someone's got a gift shop or something that's like on the first floor of a house that's been refurbished, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where the proposal is going. You know, if off on top of your head, you've got any thoughts about that, you're very happy to hear that, but that's just to kind of start sharing more of where the kind of thinking is going and what the conversation.
Yeah, no, I'd really like to see what that means, what the mixed
Yeah.
use, what the mixed use rules are. Again, anything open to the public has been problems on Elm Street. There has been problems and it's been in the past, but I don't want to live through that again. Okay, now I do know that there's the planning committee, so if anything was to go in there, it's supposed to get approved and, you know, there's a process, but it's zoned now and I don't feel like we're keeping up with the zoning right now. So in the future, I don't know what to expect. I mean, this is a bed and breakfast, okay? It's in a residential zone. It's called a hotel now. They changed the name, that's fine. New York state law, I believe, is 10 guests. She advertises 12 with 6 bedrooms. And I think that needs to be owner occupied and she's no longer living there. So, I mean, there are things that are going on today, which I'm not making a formal complaint about. I'm just saying, I don't feel like
If we have
this board
zoning
can
to stick to it.
support it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a whole different side of enforcement, right? I know
Right.
we have that. We're not staffing to be actively policing every last,
I,
and I know that's not what you're asking, but so like that's a separate sort of situation, I think, where you have to.
Sure.
consider.
sure.
I think if we had parking, the whole world would be so much better. I mean, it's just that it is a big bugaboo in this village for ever, is that there's no place to park. You know, and I think that's everybody's concern too with, you know, downtown, it's been a concern for years. Even when somebody wants to do something, the first question is, where's everybody gonna park, you know?
Make a lot of streets one way. slow people
So
down.
we're still in public comment period. Did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
the input and we will, so I don't know if did you have a chance to watch our meeting when Kay and
Yes.
was it Brian came and spoke to us, so we took the requests from 16 Elm and basically handed it down to the comprehensive plan and zoning revision committee where all of our changes have come from, just to try to keep our process consistent when it comes to looking at zoning throughout the village. So once we get those recommendations back sometime in 2026, then that will come to this board. It will require a public meetings, public hearings, public input. And as was the case with our residential zoning changes, you know, we're not afraid to go back and make changes based on input at that point. The open to the public kind of storefront, you know, your points are well taken on that. I hadn't thought about that piece specifically. I remember the old Legion. It was quite something. So we'll have more on that as the recommendations come back. Appreciate you letting us know your thoughts.
So not to belabor the point, but just to add that we'll do our best to publicize as these next steps come up, right? You'll know.
Why did you try to come to the last month's comprehensive board and you did
Yeah.
it a week earlier?
Yeah,
Starts on the.
We had to move it around
Okay.
for travel reasons, but we are for next Monday, I know Kay emailed me as well, we'll make sure we get the Zoom up so people can join either remote.
So would that be a benefit for me to come in and talk to your?
Feel free to, yeah,
I'd love to.
I know there's a lot of people excited about it, so it's more of a working committee, we don't typically have public comment, but actually, if people wanna come in, we can carve out some time for people to kind of. You've got to say the same points you're making here in front of that committee, I don't see a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Kate, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Am I muted? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, I'm so glad that you are talking about the parking again, because when I was last in town, I went down to Little Venice on a Friday night. And now the parking lot there by the village, we've given up quite a few spaces to electric charging, which is a great thing. But that parking lot was packed. The dentist parking lot was packed. And so it really parking is a huge issue when we're talking about changing a residential zone to a commercial zone. I'm very interested to hear the parameters of the mixed use zone. And I understand from Ben that those things will be explained to us and to you in 2026.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But at this point, that kind of a zoning would also be an increase in the number of rooms for rent. I think you said 16, Ben, was that right?
I can double check that, but yeah, I think the next break was from 10, it could be 5 rooms with 2 people for a bed and breakfast up to, I think 16 was the next break.
16 was the next break. Okay, well, I was a little shocked tonight to hear that 500 people a day are driving down Halseyville and onto Elm. That's what you meant when you say Halsey Road?
Halsey Street.
Halsey Street turns into Elm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of folks. And I'm so glad that you're also discussing the parking issue. And thank you for your work. Happy holidays to everyone. See you next year.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it. No other members of the public present. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a police personnel hire.
So moved.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Kay. Have a good night.
Night.